Okay, it's been like a couple weeks or so since I did my Captain Marvel review, and I ranted very much about Dave Cullen's Computing Forever. So what I thought I would do now is watch a couple of people. I've been talking with a couple people, and I've also watched a couple people that have a different opinion about the movie than I do. And so what I would like to do here is I'd like to... I talked with a good friend of mine recently, and basically we were talking about the film, and he hasn't seen the movie and doesn't plan on seeing the movie. And his reasoning for it being is just he hasn't really liked the direction that the MCU has been going in general. He really didn't care for Black Panther. It's just like he doesn't really like the way it's going. He feels that, like, you know, from what he's heard, Captain Marvel's kind of a retcon. So it's like he's really just kind of fallen out of... He's just kind of getting tired of the MCU movies in general. I feel like that's a better reason to not watch a movie other than I'm a crazy right-wing person who just hates anything that has a liberal or feminist stink on it, and I'm not going to watch the movie at all, but I'm going to watch a bunch of other people and then make an 18-minute video about how feminism and liberalism suck and are terrible. I feel like that's a much better reason to not watch the movie than that. You know, it's just like he doesn't like the direction the MCU's been going in. And so I've noticed there's a couple people in particular that I watch that didn't care for the movie, and I feel like they are better people to watch than Dave Cullen's Computing Forever. One of those people would be Mauler and Fringy. And they talk about it a little bit on episode 27 of EFAP. And EFAP, or Every Frame of Pause, I'll put a link in the description. They didn't like the movie. They give good reasons why they didn't like the movie. I think their opinion's worth listening to. And they're also... Their show they also do with The Word of Wolf, formerly The Dishonored Wolf, and Rags. And they're just a really great channel to be watching anyway. The channel's Mauler, but they kind of break down other videos and whatnot. They're really worth checking out in general. But I felt like Mauler's list of why he didn't care for the movie was pretty fair. Mainly being that he felt like it was just kind of a meh movie. And also, I think the other people that are worth checking out who basically had good criticism of the film were Red Letter Media. Red Letter Media's Half of the Bag review of Captain Marvel is very, very good. And it's like, Mike liked the movie, Jay didn't like the movie. They were both critical of it, and they were critical of the sort of this stupid controversy that's going on because of it. And I feel like they summed up better than I can about both the controversy and the film. And it's like, yeah, Mike has a soft recommendation. It's like, yeah, he liked it, and it's like that's kind of where I think Mike and I are pretty much in sync. It's like, he enjoyed the movie, had a good time with it. And it's like, and I still do like the movie, but I can definitely see it. Yeah, it does have flaws, it does have problems, and it's I think like I feel like they gave a better criticism of it, and there's a lot of things I've been kind of thinking about it. It's like they basically summed up, I think, everything that's obnoxious about the controversy about Captain Marvel online perfectly. They went all the way back. They showed the infamous scene where Bree decided to come out and say, "Oh, I don't care what white men think about A Wrinkle in Time." And it's like, no. They perfectly... I had actually not seen the presentation she'd given. I think I initially heard about it from World Class Bullshitters. So I finally saw her talk about it. I think they brought it up that, like, I think the issue was, in many ways, Captain Marvel is breaking up a glass ceiling. It's like we finally have a woman superhero, solo woman superhero. She's the main character of the movie. The movie's about her, and there you go. But she's a white woman. And the Red Letter Media guys talk about this, Mike and Jay talk about this, and it's like, there is a school of thought in feminism that states that if you're a white woman, you can't truly understand, or can't truly be you can't truly understand what you're not a good enough feminist icon because you're not a black woman, or you're a white woman, and thus you're too close to you basically can't really know what it's like to be a black woman. in the United States and whatnot, and so as a result, your kind of input is not valid. It's like there are people that are protesting, like, oh, white women voted for Trump. It's like, yeah, a lot of people voted for Trump. It's like, what do you know? And so this viewpoint of this school of thought in feminism, because that's the thing, feminism has many various that's the thing. It's like feminists don't always agree. I've considered myself a feminist for years, and then I met Anita Sarkeesian. Well, I didn't meet Anita Sarkeesian. I found out about her, and it's like, oh, I don't agree with this at all. And it's like, it's kind of become a dirty word in recent years. But it's like, yeah, feminists don't always agree, liberals don't always agree, conservatives don't always agree. And that's the thing. This school of thought that basically, if you're a white woman, you can't have any say in feminist ideals, I would argue is an extremist viewpoint. And for those of you who watch me, all 5 of you, I have no use for extremism. I have no use for extreme. This is the idea that if you're a white woman, you have no place in feminism. That is an extreme liberal viewpoint, and it's wrong. And it's that is it is. If you're excluding white women, you're being racist. You are being racist, and it's like it's an extremist view. It's just as bad as being an extreme conservative person. It's just as bad as Dave Cullen's hatred of all things feminist or liberal. It's just as bad as Trump and all that shit. So it's like, yeah, like extreme viewpoints I have no use for whatsoever. And so it looks like she was kind of, but whatever. She was put in a situation where she was like we got part of what we wanted. It was like we got a glass ceiling being broken. We got a movie about a female superhero. But she's not a black woman. So then they had an interview with her. A young black lady reporter was interviewing her, and she was talking about how it was like, it's difficult being a woman in Hollywood, especially being a woman of color in Hollywood. And it's like, it's like you're a white woman saying this to a black woman. It's just like, what? And then she goes out and does the big thing. And she goes in this long speech. And the Red Letter Media guys go into more detail with it than better detail than I can. And yeah, basically, I listened to her speech, and I'm like, listen to that, and I'm like, yeah, this is it's pretty shitty. It's a pretty shitty thing to say. It's like, and they point out, I think like what she was intending was, I feel like a lot of this is what a lot of people are trying to go for is that we should, and what I've always felt with liberal viewpoints is like I definitely believe in the melting pot. I believe that we should be accepting of all cultures, all creeds, all sexualities, what have you, and we should all get along and work together. And I very much believe in that. And it's like I believe very much like, and that includes conservatives. That includes everybody. I think we all love the country. We should all work together, and and I think we should have more viewpoints, more people coming in. And I think that's what you're essentially trying to go for. But she has this attitude where it's like, oh, she went on this whole weird thing about like film criticism, and now she doesn't care what a 40-year-old white man, thinks of A Wrinkle in Time. And really, and the thing is, and she's getting claps and things like that. It's like, that's sexist. That is sexist and racist. It is. It's like, just because you're promoting, everybody else, you're promoting women and you're promoting people of different ethnicities, excluding white men is racist. It's that two wrongs do not make a right. So yeah, like what she said was shitty. And I remember I didn't actually see what she had said initially, like a year ago, but I'd heard about it. And I was like, yeah, that was pretty shitty. And so they kind of pointed out that was like all she really had to do was come out and say, hey, like, why don't we? And again, they also point out how, like, in terms of social justice, I think a more diverse group of film critics. She was criticizing like white men being critics of this, that, and the other. Once again, I would argue this is a deflection argument. It's basically, your movie was bad. People criticize your movie, so, oh, you're just an old white man, who cares what you think? And my attitude was like, okay, well, fuck you. It's like, look, you made a bad movie. It doesn't matter whether I'm white or black or whatnot. If I don't like your movie, I'm going to let you know I didn't like your movie. And to claim that, to kind of try to attempt to make an argument that just because of who I am or who the critic is, by their identity politics, or that by just like the fact that they're a white man or whatnot, that is they're trying to project racism on another person, which is not there, which really shows that they are racist themselves. And that's no good. That's no good. That is a really shitty thing to do. And at the end of the day, it's like Mike and Jay quickly pointed out, it's like, it's not like, like that's the thing. It's like, yeah, like a movie may not be made for a certain type of person, but there's, just like plenty of movies are not made for certain types of people, but like, there are plenty, like, there are plenty of movies about race that may not have been made for white men, like Moonlight or Tangerines, which is the story about two black trans prostitutes, and they're both beloved. They got like 98% on Rotten Tomatoes, critic score, and like, really high audience score too. People like love these movies. Moonlight, I remember Moonlight was about the story of a young black man growing up who was gay, and that was like I want to say, I think that won the Oscars. It was a couple years ago, but it was like, yeah, it was a really good movie, and yeah, it's got a lot of praise on it, and most of those praise comes from white men. So it's like, regardless of that fact that movie was not made for them, it was still, they still like it. So it's like, yeah, it doesn't, the argument doesn't hold water. But at the same time, it's like, all she really had to say was, we should have more women and more a wider group of ethnicities and people in film criticism and in movies in general. And it's like, that's all you really had to say. And that's something I would agree with. All you'd have to say is, like, I think even, and again, I think everybody can look at that. Every decent person, it doesn't matter whether you're a liberal, conservative, whatnot. You can look. There's something in the melting pot for you. An idea that we all just come together as friends and brothers, no matter what race we are, or ethnicity, or gender, religion, political party. We can all come together and work together and make great things. And that's something I truly believe, and I think we can go for. And that's all you had to say. And instead, she's like, yay, diversity, fuck white men. You can't have it both ways. And it's like, yeah, what she did was really shitty. But then, it's like, I remember hearing about that like a year ago. World Class Bullshitter said that about a year ago. And Mike and Jay quickly pointed out, it was like, and then for like every day since then, you have these entire YouTube channels which do nothing but fucking, like, every day are bitching about Brie Larson preemptively before the movie came about. And it's a horrible blow to bullshit on both sides. Whether you have people that are just preemptively hating the movie because of her, or because they've disillusioned with feminism because of it. If they're extreme conservatives like Dave Cullen, who are like, fuck everything liberal and feminist altogether. If they're crazy liberals who are like, screaming about the patriarch and whatnot, every aspect of it just makes like the world a miserable place. And they just very beautifully and expertly and wittily pointed out everything wrong with that. Everything wrong with this entire controversy. And then they went on to criticize the film. And there were certain things they praised. There were certain things that they didn't like. And I think it was very insightful. And it's like it's one of those things, going back to Mauler. Mauler feels that you shouldn't do a review of a movie until like maybe a week or two after you've seen it. Think about it, digest it, then make your review. And I feel like, and like Mauler's specialty, for those of you who are fans of Mauler specializes in very long form content. He basically has he's basically working on these massive critiques of the Star Wars movies, which are like hours long, which he uses a lot of material. He has a lot to say. He loves doing these very long video essays. And like the best criticism any really can make of him is like, oh, it's too long. Yeah, but it's good. It's good. He's insightful. He does a great job, and it's very interesting. It's very kind of like reminiscent of, like, speaking of Red Letter Media, it's reminiscent of the new Plinkett review, of basically just kind of going on and just kind of analyzing something at length. He does an excellent job, and one of his insights, and I think this is very true of The Last Jedi, which is kind of where he kind of like when it comes, like, The Last Jedi is basically where he kind of hit his stride and got a ton of viewers and whatnot because he criticized that, is that The Last Jedi has this weird effect on people where when you watch it the first time, you really like it. That's what happened to me. I was like, okay, yeah, it was a Star Wars movie. I was like, you're up in the action and you're enjoying it. And then you stop and you think about it. You think about the movie that you saw, and then it just kind of falls apart. And there's certain movies that happens. It was like, I remember way back watching like Transformers 2: Revenge of the Fallen, And I remember leaving the theater like, well, I more or less enjoyed what I saw, but it was just kind of annoying. And I remember just being kind of annoyed by the humor, like a lot of the bad jokes and whatnot in the movie, like Rainn Wilson's stupid role in it and all that. And I remember just being really annoyed by that. And then I went home and I watched Spoonie. And I know you're sitting thinking right there, well, there's your first problem. You're watching Spoonie. And mind you, I do have I even back then had a problem with Spoonie saying shit like, I was so upset about the movie I couldn't drive home. I got a problem with that. Like, okay, it's just a movie, Noah. It is. But like Noah really broke down like, no, this movie sucks and this is why. And the more I listened to him, the more I was thinking about it, I was like, yeah, I was like, I can't watch Transformers 2 anymore. I've seen it like once all the way through. And like if it comes on, I will leave the room. I cannot. It's like that movie just went from this is okay to just like miserable. And that movie has not aged well at all. Like, yeah, that movie is an annoying, shitty movie. And with The Last Jedi, it's weird too, where it's like it's. I think with The Last Jedi, it's basically it moves so quickly and so rapidly. It never gives you a chance to kind of think about what you're watching. That when you're in the heat of it and you're like, all right, where are you going with this movie? Where are you going with this? Okay, we're running away from the First Order. What's going on? Okay, Luke's drinking space milk and he won't train Rey for some reason. Okay, but we're in Canto Bight now. What's going on? Like when you're in it and when you don't know how the movie's going to end. There's still an expectation. You're letting the movie. The entire movie is also the case of the film. It's the argument. It's like they're still telling their story, and it's like if you're invested enough, you're gonna follow it through all the way to the end. And see where the story goes. And that's kind of like what I did with, I think a lot of people do The Last Jedi. It's just like, okay, you followed it, you followed the premise where we go through all the way through, and then it ends with Luke Skywalker dying in the stupidest way possible, and total character assassination, and both sides are so decimated in such an unsatisfactory way where it's like, okay, Luke's dead, Han's dead, Leia's dead in real life. There's 10 people left in the entire Rebel Alliance, but we have everything we need. Kylo Ren has proved himself inept at every single opportunity to the point where I don't care what happens in Episode 9. And I also don't care about this weird romance between him and Rey. And then there's a bunch of little snot kids on Canto Bight who are like, look, oh, he's Force sensitive. It's the next generation that I just want to punch. I don't. Something about kids in movies. I just want to hit them. I just want to. It brings out the worst in me. It's just, oh, that kid's cute. Little damn kids. It's and then it just by the end of it, you're like, huh, that kind of sucked. And then you think about it, and you think about everything you saw, and once you analyze it later on, you realize this was a terrible film. And since then, I can't watch The Last Jedi anymore. I can't I remembered it that. It was weird because I remember leaving it was a good time. That was a good time. Me and my dad saw it, at Christmas. It was and then I left the theater and I'm like, I talked to my buddy, the same friend I talked to about Captain Marvel, and we're just like, yeah, it's it just, the more I thought about it, the more I sat and thought about it, I was like, that was kind of shit. And so, I mean, that's the thing. I agree with Mauler that sometimes you just you got to sit on it. At least there are certain films where you need to sit and kind of mull it over at the experience you had, and to really kind of come up with a resounding conclusion. I guess another good example of a good movie where it kind of stays with you. But at the same time, it's this doesn't necessarily mean the movie's bad sometimes, but it's there's certain movies where it's okay, Monster, starring Charlize Theron. It's that's a good movie. I never want to see it again. It's a very powerful film. It's a very upsetting film, based on a true story, based off a real life serial killer, and showing her upbringing and the shit she went through. And it is a very effective and powerful movie, and it's an absolutely it's a good film, but it is a miserable story. And it's the type of thing where I don't need to watch it again. I could just think about what I saw. It's never left me. There's some movies that that get better when you think about them, like Jacob's Ladder. I think Jacob's Ladder. You could watch Jacob's Ladder, and then think about Jacob's Ladder, and just analyze the scenes, and think more about it. over and over again. Jacob's Ladder. Now, I guess Jacob's Ladder, I think again, your mileage may vary. Jacob's Ladder works very, very effectively, both as like a horror movie and a spiritual movie. And there's a lot to draw from there, but it's like, yeah, it's a movie I definitely like to think. I mean, it does like another critic, Ragnarok. So I just discovered talks about how it's a movie that stays with you. It really does. It's like I can. Like whenever I view that movie, it's just like it leaves me just kind of thinking about what happened and the implications in it. So I think that's a valid criticism. In the case of Captain Marvel, I still enjoyed the film. I still really like the film, but it's the type of thing where I'm looking like I can notice certain arguments of theirs. I could definitely see a lot of the reason why people would not like this movie or wouldn't want to avoid it in the first place. I still feel like a lot of what we've been experiencing here is this bizarre, like, we're not even talking about the movie anymore. I feel like on either side of the equation, we're talking about some kind of bullshit politics that really doesn't freaking matter in the first place. It's like, I think people take their frustration with the government or the state of the world, and they let it sink into every single aspect of their lives, which I understand it's hard to avoid doing that, but at the same time, it's like you got to separate yourself at a certain time. Little things like there's a fight scene in the movie set to "I'm Just a Girl" by No Doubt. Completely went over my head. Like that, and I think the reason why is I really like Gwen Stefani. I really like No Doubt, and it was just, and it works. But that's the thing; it does work thematically with the scene. It's like it's where she's kind of unleashed her power, and she's fighting the Kree hit squad that she used to be teamed up with, and it's a really good action scene. And it's just kind of like, well, I'm just a girl. It thematically works with the movie and with the message of the character. Whereas that, like, she's a girl, but she's more powerful than she thinks she is, and that does ring true as a feminist message. But at the same time, it's like it's like even if it wasn't the case, it's just like, oh, it's kind of underestimating her, and it kind of went over my head. It was like that was even an issue because I just like the song, I just like Gwen Stefani, so it's just like, yeah, rocking the best of the '90s while I'm watching my action scene. But at the same time, I'm looking at the overall movie, and it's just like, oh, okay, so the people that are really upset about this movie being too feminist and whatnot, it's like, I can see cringing when that comes on. And, Nirvana comes up at one point, and I think Come As You Are, and, like, Jay Bauman said that, like, he couldn't sit still in his seat at that point because he could feel Kurt Cobain rolling in his grave. It's like, so, I mean, I think there is definitely, no movie is perfect. I feel like, and I feel like in terms of my own personal experience, you could argue that with me, I'm relatively easy to please. It's like, but I think maybe, it's like, in order for me to really sign off on a movie, the movie has to piss me off. Like, it has to be, like, I'm a huge fan of, like, Charles Band and the Puppet Master movies. So, those are arguably bad films. And it's like, they're schlock. But it's like, I think what they do well, they do very, very well. So it's like, you'll never catch me genuinely and earnestly calling the Puppet Master movies bad. That's not, except when we're talking about, like, there's, like, one that's, like, kind of, like, it's not even really a movie, it's just, like, a clip show of all the other movies. Okay, that's kind of bad. But, like, you're never really going to catch me ragging on that stuff, even though, regardless of the fact that it's, like, okay, it's very, a lot of it is very campy and cheesy. I'm a fan of science fiction, and I'm a fan of, comic book and superhero movies. So when you give me a really awesome science fiction romp, I'm going to have a good time. But I can see certain things. It's weird. Like, the comments on Brie Larson about, like, how she's... that whole situation with her talking about how she doesn't need 40-year-old white men telling her what they think of A Wrinkle in Time, does make her come across like a massive bitch. She does seem to, in other forms, come across as, like, kind of snarky and just kind of an asshole. And in terms of her performance, it's like, yeah, like, she's very... It is kind of hard to get a... Like, I feel like it's one of those instances where it's like the other Marvel characters, the actor kind of shines through and accentuates what makes the character great. In the case of Brie Larson, I think Brie Larson did a passable job, but I feel like it was just like, it was a different situation where it was like, I could see the comic book character and the comic book character I like on display and awesome. I'm seeing her with her cool powers, and I'm seeing this cool character, but at the same time, it's like the actress is getting in the way now. It's like now, like, is this really Captain Marvel or is this Brie Larson? So there's certain things too. Is like there's a couple points where she steals a motorcycle, she blows something up, and it's kind of played for laughs, but it doesn't. There's a disconnect. It's like, so I can definitely see the criticisms of this film. I can definitely see why certain people wouldn't like it. But yeah, so I'm basically I'm saying if this movie is not for you, if you don't care for it, I do recommend Red Letter Media's Half in the Bag review of it. I recommend Mauler and Rags and Fringy and The Word of Wolf and whatnot, and their talk about it in EFAP. I recommend checking those people out. Those have much more informed criticisms, and even to draw on what Mr. Dave Cullen said in his crappy video. Even then, seeing as how he didn't watch the movie and just listened to a bunch of other reviewers he trusts, and then ranted about feminism and liberalism for 18 minutes. At the end of the day, what he said and what I notice a lot of other people, including Mauler, are saying is that the movie's just kind of eh. So in terms of the people that don't like this movie, the most I'm getting out of it without going in, the most I'm hearing from people is the movie's kind of meh. Chris Stuttman and Jeremy Johns, who I threw under the fucking bus when I was ranting about Dave, even they said it's like, yeah, the movie's okay. And a lot of people are at that point, and it's like, okay, yeah, but okay, meh, is not necessarily bad. Arguably, that's worse than bad because it's boring. So you may have such a reaction too. Your mileage may vary. I would still encourage you to check out the movie, but if you're looking for a difference of opinion other than this neckbeard who loves everything Marvel, I would recommend Red Letter Media, and I would recommend Mauler and the EFAP dudes. I still actually would like to check out World Class Bullshitters Midnight's Edge. I still haven't seen what they've said on the issue. I was about to look at one of their like Midnight's Edge assessment of Captain Marvel, and Midnight's Edge, one thing I like about them is they seem very, very professional. It's like they do their research, they do their homework, they study from multiple sources the entire phenomenon of the situation, and then draw their conclusion. They don't get emotionally involved, they don't get upset, but they're not afraid to talk about the controversy. And World Class Bullshitters, I want to see what he has to say too. I gotta say this, I will be disappointed if in fact he's just been doing nothing but ranting about Brie Larson for a year, just for no fucking reason. But I will say this about World Class Bullshitters is he's a good guy, and he was there for us when Last Jedi turned out to be a steaming pile of shit. And he's a very passionate Star Wars fan, and he's a decent guy. He's a decent guy. Don't 100% agree with his politics, but I have a lot of respect for World Class Bullshitters. I definitely have a lot more respect for them than Dave Cullen. So I'm willing to hear him out on that. So, but yeah, this is really just kind of wanted to talk about basically a differing opinion on this, and it's like and it kind of one last thought, something else that Mike was talking about, how I feel like he didn't really bring this up, but I feel like maybe the issue is that like Endgame is going to be the big conclusion for the MCU as we know it. And what he would recommend that is like they're going to finish up, they resolve everything, finish off Thanos. A lot of people aren't going to be coming back. They're going to be like done at least for a while. It would be a good place to just end and stop for a while, and that's it. They're probably not going to do that. Oh, and of course, a couple days ago, the deal between Fox and Disney was finally finalized. So the X-Men, Deadpool, Fantastic Four, they're all coming back to Marvels. That's something I've been literally waiting for years. So I would like to see an MCU storyline involving the X-Men, and I'm hoping eventually that will happen. But it does feel like basically maybe bringing in Captain Marvel was initially just to set up a new hero to take over after these Avengers we know and love have been gone for a while. But it's like, I think a lot of things that's echoing with my friend who's at least, I think he'll see Captain Marvel eventually, but he's in no big hurry basically. But you know, he's becoming dissatisfied with the MCU, and I think like one argument you could draw with him is that we've been getting to know the Avengers and these other Marvel characters all this time, and this movie Endgame should be about their story. We don't really need, you know, in terms of a movie, I mean, you could argue they need a superpowered Juggernaut lady to come in and help out and help fight Thanos, but you know, we've got to know these other characters and know and love them, and this should be their story. It should be a ragtag team of Avengers against a larger-than-life opponent like Thanos. It should be their story, and it should bring that to a close instead of just having this MacGuffin Deus Ex Machina character come out of nowhere and save the day. And it's like, and maybe that's an issue. And we, you know, again, I'm really looking forward to Endgame, and so we'll see. I'm very excited about Endgame. I'm super pumped about Endgame. So, but it's like, yeah, it feels like in terms of a first. Again, I still enjoyed the movie. And I thought it was a fun space opera, and it does have problems with it, but I enjoyed it, flaws and all. But it does feel like a better choice in hindsight for your first female solo movie should have been Black Widow. It should have hands down been Black Widow. I think Scarlett Johansson deserves it. I think she's done a good job. I think more people love her character. And all the other characters get like a solo movie. Thor gets a solo movie. Captain America gets a solo movie. Hulk got a solo movie that nobody cares about except me, I guess. Iron Man and Captain America got their own solo series. So it's like, you know, why not Natasha? And that probably would have been a better route. I guess the upshot of having Captain Marvel is we have a new character coming in. Yeah, it was cool to see her come to life, you know, and it was, but it's like, yeah, her performance is like, you don't know whether her, after seeing that interview, it's like, you know, and I think like, yeah, even Mike even said it was like, he liked the movie, and then he kind of started hating it after he'd seen Brie Larson in other things afterwards. And it's like, yeah, it's like now it starts informing the character. Is like, is this really Carol Danvers, or is this just Brie Larson? This grouchy, snarky lady. So I don't know. And that's the thing. There is something off about her performance. She's kind of wooden and weird. It's not. I think it, like, for me, it was interesting. Like from the setup of the movie all the way forward, it was kind of neat seeing going in where it's like she's like an alien, but she doesn't have any memories of what's going on, and then she starts regaining her memories, and much of the movie is her remembering who she is. And that's interesting, but she does just feel there's something kind of off. Other times she's really snarky and funny, other times she's just kind of cold. It's an odd performance, and I think that might have been the issue. It's like, again, she's not terrible, but I can understand why other people would have a problem with it. So yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say here is I still like the movie, but I can understand why a lot of people wouldn't like it. I can understand why you may not like it. Let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think about Captain Marvel, or this fucking nightmare of a controversy that's been going on. It's like I'm interested. I'm interested to know what people think. But yeah, that's just kind of a little follow-up. And again, I'm going to leave a link in the description to Red Letter Media and EFAP that talks about it. Again, these are better people to follow than Computing Forever. This is a better, more reasoned film criticism, other than, you know, I feel like the better way to go about all this is just moderation, a moderate response. Like can't we all just get along? Can't we all, like, does it, you know, can't we have our strong female character and not get too upset about that? Yeah, at the same time, can we not fucking condemn white men for criticizing it? Could we just all just shut the fuck up and watch the movie? I'm gonna shut up right now. So salut. This is the Dread Pirate. I like caffeine. I like Pepsi. This is I don't know. Good night, folks. Bye.